Welcome to Mobilizing Tech Talent, Tools to Grow, Attract, and Retain Albertans, a 6-part web series presented by the Information and Communications Technology Council as part of a capacity building program called TADE, Talent Acquisition for the Digital Economy. The objective of TADE is to give small and medium Alberta employers HR tools to help them find, hire, and retain digital talent, which is essential to businesses across sectors to thrive in the digital economy. TADE is a free program funded by the Government of Alberta in partnership with the Government of Canada. A link to the program resources can be found in the description below. I'm excited to present our first speaker in the series, Debbie Mastel, who will share strategies on recruiting and effectively attracting talent. Debbie Mastel and Associates, tell us a little bit about what your role is. Like, what is it that you do, and why do employers come to you?
Well, so we're a boutique recruitment firm, and what we're known for is we fill difficult to fill roles or what they call critical roles for their organizations. That's why. So if they've tried what I call the post and pray method, where they've posted the role but didn't get the traction they were looking for a variety of reasons, then they come to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you help them when they come to you? What is it that your process?
Oh, so the thing that I'm definitely known for, and so is my team. We've got 4 recruiters now, also that all are very well rehearsed in this. Is it's old school. So my dad did it, and my dad taught me how to do it. But it's a process called mapping.
Okay.
So what that looks like is that I take a look at my client. So my client will come to me and ask me for a specific skill set. And the very first thing I do is I map out who their competitors are. Okay.
Gotcha.
And when we have those discussions with the client up front saying, okay, so tell me, like, what are other industries maybe that would have the same skill set that you'd be interested in? So my goal always is to make out a list of about 50 target companies. And from there, I go and say, okay, now who's done this role that I'm looking for at those companies? So it's almost like building out org charts for all their competitors, then handpicking the select ones that I want to go after.
Yep.
And so to give you an example of my numbers, it takes us on average, our average is 100 cold calls to get a hire.
Oh.
So before we start getting on the phones, we will map out 150 people who could potentially do the job.
Holy smokes.
Right? And then we start reaching out. So it's very strategic and it's very targeted.
Yeah.
So it's not we don't post. Rarely do we post. I like to use my LinkedIn account just to brag about all the different roles I'm working on. But I can honestly tell you, only once has that worked that I've actually hired somebody from a post I did on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's actually that targeted, focused approach where we're going after a specific skill set.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You got about 22,000 connections on LinkedIn, so you've really done your groundwork on getting known and connected. So that must have taken a massive amount of time to procure.
I think all that does is show you how old I am and how long I've been doing this. Because I'll tell you this, when it's so fun, because years ago I started my career working for my dad. My dad did this too, and LinkedIn had just kind of started being the buzzword back then. And I went to my dad and I was telling my dad all about this. And my dad, by that time, he was old school, right? He wasn't really that into it. And I was like, I think this is actually something. And what we found was my dad's clients found out that I was like this LinkedIn. I was obsessed with LinkedIn and learning it. And but at the end of the day, if you fast forward, I actually was teaching people at the very beginning of my career how to use LinkedIn to recruit. And I became one of less than 500 worldwide that was certified, a certified LinkedIn recruiter.
Wow.
But that all being said, the reality is that's one tool in my tool belt that I use. There's so many roles that I've done that folks just are not on LinkedIn. And they are deemed critical roles because my clients need them. And so I'll give you an example, like any of the trades folks, rare that they're on there.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it depends on the kind of role, whether they're on there or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Alberta, I've been tracking engineers, geologists, geophysicists, and power engineers now for probably over 15 years. So if you came to me and gave me a name of an engineer, I can tell you their pretty much their life story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually working at Synovus. And I remember my boss coming to me when I first started, and she was like trying to wrap her head around what I did. And she said, well, my husband's a geologist. Is he on any of your lists? I was like, oh, without a doubt he will be, but let me see. And I came back and I told her a lot of information that I knew about her husband within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't know whether to tell you I'm impressed or creeped out.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of roles, especially in the tech sector, what are some of the roles that are maybe more difficult to hire for?
I just had a really hard one. And the reason it was so difficult is that we were looking for technical skills and also leadership skills. So it was a manager level role of the group of developers. So we wanted somebody who not only was, and it was a hands-on manager role. So we went down the path. I know we reached out to over 200 on that one, by the way.
Wow.
And that one was so difficult. We were getting people that were really either strong leaders but lacked the technical skills, or we had really strong technical people who lacked leadership. So finding that combination of both the skills. But I will tell you what, technically, did I fill that role? No. But we were down to, we had just presented our group of candidates, and then it being in the tech sector, everything moves fast, and they had just purchased another big company, and the role went on hold. There was a hiring freeze. So it wasn't really our fault. We'd done all the work.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things move fast. So when we were messing around where it's like, okay, we hit it on this and we're missing this, and you're reaching out to over 200 people, which takes a long time, everything can change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much time do you invest into this? I mean, we've touched a little bit about on this, when you're looking for 150 candidates before the phones really start ringing.
Yeah.
How much time do you figure that really takes you?
I'll tell you what. So there have been roles that I have been able to fill in a day, and there are roles that I have worked on for a year. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
I would love to say I could fill every role in a day, but the reality is it depends. I remember one time I got a lady because they had this is pre-COVID, but they had just made an announcement in their office that they were going to a model where it was cubicles. So they were all losing their offices. And I called her on the day she found that out. And her first question to me was, does your client offer offices or cubicles? And I said, offices. And she said, I'm in. And that's how I got her.
Wow, that's an interesting, caveat for someone to ask for. I'm going to do it or not.
But I'll tell you what it is now. What is it now? Do they offer work from home?
I betcha. I
Right?
betcha it's blown up for sure. Yeah. So going back to that position, when you were looking for both management and skill set, so that's a fairly difficult position to hire for.
Yeah.
What would be your suggestion for employers that are looking for something like that? What would your suggestion be to them on how they would attract that kind of talent?
Well, you need someone like me on the phones calling 200 people.
Yeah, right.
But if you didn't,
Yeah.
I think you would do the same things that I did.
Yeah.
You have to remember that I'm not saying you need me on every role. That is not what I'm suggesting at all. But the reality is that there are certain roles that you're going to post and you're not going to find the person. Why? Because that lady or that man has his head down and is working at their job.
Yes.
You know, what we're known for is going after passive talent. So not the active job seekers. So if a guy's upset at work, he's on there Googling jobs for himself, right?
Yeah.
But my job is to go after passive talent. So they're already at another job and are not considering making a move. And in fact, the smaller companies, especially smaller mid-sized companies, they actually need someone like myself to go out there and be telling their story for them.
Right.
So when you think of especially the Calgary market, everybody's going to the big oil and gas producers, and they don't need anybody typically to be out there saying, listen to my story, right?
Yeah.
They don't. But the smaller guys who, they'll post their job on Indeed, and in 2 minutes it's on page 10 that nobody's even seeing, because these other companies, the larger ones, are paying to get their ads front and center.
Right.
But more importantly is that really who we're going after?
Yeah.
Who we're going after are the people that are happy at work, that just need somebody to tap them on the shoulder and say, I just want you to listen to my story.
Yeah.
And then tell them about your client and what's so exciting. And then that's how you get buy-in right from the beginning, where people want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And can start envisioning themselves in that.
Captivating. That's such a great point. And I know in today's world especially, people are, the type of work that they're doing, and obviously pay is always important, but it's surprising how large the importance of social etiquette and whatnot that the company holds itself to is very important for someone to go in and if I want to work there, I want to work there because I believe in what they're doing. So telling that story is a really important part of that. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
I want to add to this.
Yeah.
I was just over at one of my clients' places, and they were telling me one of the questions they start off in their interview is, so tell us what you know about our organization. And they said I don't know how many job coaches I've heard from that always say, do your research, look at the company. And they told me that I would be in shock how many people didn't look them up, don't know the first thing about them. They knew that they were close to their house or in their area and that they're hiring, and so they threw their name in. And again, that's not who anyone's hiring. Yeah. They want people who want to be a part of what they're growing. Yeah. That's what they want. They want that buy-in. Yeah. So knowing what companies are looking for, and companies asking that question and being willing to walk away from someone who doesn't know anything about them. Yeah. And is just and so you look at, like, do you have the courage as an employer to walk away when this guy checks all the boxes and has everything you're looking for, but does know nothing about your company? Are you willing to walk away?
That's a good question to be asking yourself as an employer.
Right.
So that leads me into another very important topic that we hear a lot about, which is culture or fit, quote unquote. Is it, do you run into that a lot with employers that are asking about, find me somebody that fits, find me somebody that molds into our culture? And how should employers tackle that?
It's so interesting because I'm not a big believer in that, because and anyone who's in HR is like, right now, I'm sure of it. But the reality is that there is culture, and then there are subcultures within that culture. Okay? So even though I might get to know as an external recruiter what their culture is, the subculture with all the different groups is really hard to know unless you work there.
Yes.
So that culture piece for a third-party recruiter is very difficult to understand. And also with the small startups, they don't know what their culture is yet. So that's something that they're working on, that they will grow into, that they'll bring in later. Maybe they'll see how things pan out. I don't know, but I know a lot of them are kind of unsure or trying to figure out what that looks like. So my job, I feel like, is when a client comes to me and says to me, this is what I'm looking for. And I go, okay, I've got it. My job is to bring the skill set to them. Now, whether they're going to mesh with and they can describe what the culture is, but at the end of the day, it's really, are you going to rock the boat? Do you get along with the hiring manager? That's what they want to know. Are you reliable? If you're going to go in and cause a bunch of drama, I don't care if you check all the boxes. That could ruin a team. So, but that kind of stuff is up for the manager to go, can I manage the person that has the skills that I'm looking for?
Gotcha.
And then the question is, so if you had somebody who culturally or personality-wise, you're going to get along with, no problem. But what if you go, they might rub the team the wrong way? Then the question is can you manage it? Can you manage it? And that's up to the hiring manager. And if not, would you go with candidate B who doesn't quite check all the boxes, but that you're more closely aligned to?
Well, and the people make the culture. Until you have the people there, it's tough to tell what that culture is, especially on startups and emerging companies.
Right.
What do you say to employers that are looking for like a lot of these startups that have a smaller budget and they have a lot of tasks that need to be accomplished, and they're trying to do that with as few amount of people as possible because they're trying to reduce on or keep their overhead low, right? What do you say to employers that are trying to look for that Swiss Army knife? Like you've mentioned it at the beginning, right? You mentioned at the beginning about the two talents. We need a management and we need the tech set, right? That's kind of like a Swiss Army knife.
I love that. Yeah.
What do you say to employers that are looking for that Swiss Army knife, and how far do you have to go to look for someone that already pre-existingly has the talent that they're looking for to, okay, I found this person that's just really willing to learn. Now you're going to have to train them on the rest. What do you say to an employer that's looking for somebody like that?
Well, I think it does come down to what are you willing to pay for. So I never, when I'm presenting candidates, for instance, if someone said to me, we're paying this job and it pays $80,000 a year, and I meet somebody who is that Swiss Army knife, but they are $120,000 a year, I will still put them forward and say, this is the person you're looking for. This is how much it's going to cost. And I let them decide whether or not they can ante up or not. Because that's up to them, right? But and you get candidates too that will say, they not to specialize in one area, because then it makes it really hard to market yourself. So they do try to broaden their scope. But there's others that believe, I look at my own career where I'm not a recruiter. I'm actually more of a headhunter or headhunter, I think is what they call them, don't they?
I'm pretty sure,
Yeah. And so, and it's specialized, like it's very specialized what I do. And so, but it's done me really well. So I think you can have both sides, where you can have general skill sets or you can be that Swiss Army knife. But I'll tell you what, for a lot of these companies, I don't know if they're looking for the Swiss Army knife as much as they're looking for the attitude that I can become the Swiss Army knife. Okay, so if you have a specific skill set, but you're very entrepreneurial, so you understand. One of the best examples I can give you is one of my clients I went to go see the other day, and I was like, where is he? And he's one of the owners of the company. He's the COO, and he's on the floor welding is what he was doing. Because they've got to get their machines out the door, right? And so you sit there and you go, if the owner's willing to do that, they expect everybody to do that. And so being the person that goes, I might be in HR, but if they they need help buying, I'm going to figure that piece out too. And if they need me to order stuff, or they need me to help sweep a floor, sometimes that's as easy as it gets. I'm that person that likes to do that. You will find that a lot of companies are attracted to that. Yeah.
As an employer, I mean, to that point, a really great example is Elon Musk. You know, Elon Musk really works, he gets on the floor with his people. And he even says that, he's like, I don't really care about your degrees and all that sort of stuff. It helps, but I want that buy-in. I want that motivation that you're doing something good and that you want to do this job. And I love, that's such a crazy, neat mentality and unique to find. It's tough to find that, but that's where people like yourself.
Because where do you start?
Yeah,
that's the question for the. So let me give you an example. There's a startup here in Edmonton that I'm working with, and we need plant operators. And we're not requiring you to be a power engineer. We're actually saying more like a handyman. But what's important for this team is that willingness to pitch in and do anything and learn the business, and they could teach it, and you would work your way up that way.
And as an employer, how do you communicate that?
But then I'm out there telling the story, right?
Telling the story.
And
it's in the story.
It is.
Right.
But then the follow-up to this is, it starts at, we're going to start you at $20 an hour.
Prove your initiative.
So that's where people go, you know, is that for me? And how long do I have to work at that level? And you know, the startups, that's what they're banking on, is come in, buy into the story.
Yeah.
We might not be able to pay you right now. It's high risk, high rewards. Because if this thing takes off, we're all going to be laughing, right?
Right.
So many of them are talking about in the next year going public. And so when they do that, you could potentially do very well being an employee, one of the first 50 people on board. You could do very well at that. But the question is how much are you willing to how much are you willing to risk?
Yeah, from both standpoints.
Yes.
So let's dive into that a little bit more. So particularly salary. I'm sure a lot of employers are asking that question. You know, when do we bring up salary? Do we do that in the job offer when we give it to you and say, okay, I want you to go and find me somebody and this is what we're paying? Is that the right time to bring that up? Or is that something you bring up after you've learned the personality of that individual and knowing that, this is the right fit, I think, but now it's going to come down to the brass tacks dollars, right?
Well, it's so funny because a friend of mine just posted the other day about the importance of posting salaries on all job advertisements.
Yeah.
And I quickly messaged him back and said, I just went and looked at all of yours and you didn't post it once. So let's start there. Okay. So everyone's like, oh, you should do it. You definitely need to do it, but we're not doing it. This is what I'll say to you. I think it's important to get that out right I show my cards. Okay. I show them right from the beginning. This is what I can afford today, right now. A lot of my clients, what they're doing is they're saying, this is what we can pay right now, but in 3 months, we will review that. And then we'll see if we can give you a bit of a bump. But even then, don't expect me to be doubling down in 3 months. Like, we're talking a couple bucks an hour is what we can do, right?
Right.
But that is what they're doing. But the salary question comes up right from the get-go. And the reason I want to have that right at the beginning of our conversation is that I want you to think about it and think if this is for you. So I'll have people that'll be like, oh, I want in. And then when I'm like, okay, well, this particular job is paying whatever. And they're like, yeah, I'm out. Right? And it's fair. It's fair. I'm not asking, this is not for everybody. But then there's other people who go, I want to grow at the company. This is what I want to do. And they're in. And that's the kind of people that my clients want.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you ever suggest to employers, maybe some other incentive ideas? So like you were talking about these companies that are about to go public, right? And say, oh, we're about a year away, but we need that extra boost of talent to get us there, right? What about employers offering like shares of companies, stock options, things like that, even if the company's not public, but they're writing that in the contract, like, listen, you stay with us for the next year. When we go public, is that something that's an effective tool for an employer to use?
Yeah, I think what they're doing actually is saying, not that they can give them the stock options, but they will have the opportunity to buy them at a set price.
Gotcha.
Which will be a lot less than what they're actually worth.
Yeah.
So they would be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I think what's more important is this whole flexibility thing. And giving the employers the benefit of the doubt that they are going to do the right thing. So when they do start making money, that they are going to reward the people that got them there.
Yes.
You have to have faith that that's what's going to happen. I am sure I'll get bombarded now with people telling me, oh, can I say screwed? But okay. No. Okay.
That's how they feel sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, right? Yeah.
So they weren't treated fairly.
Yeah.
And that, I get that. It does happen.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that at all. All I can tell you is that you have to believe that the right thing will happen if you're following what you want. But going back to your question about what can they do and what are the incentives that they can offer, I think that flexibility piece goes a long way.
Yeah.
So you will have people that want to work in your offices every day. They're tired of the pandemic. They want to get going with everything. They cannot stand working from home. What's so interesting is if you look at the jobs that pre-pandemic that were work from home, you had to have a specific office space. They would come to your home and they would look at your office space that you had for your job.
Yeah.
And it had to have a door. I know that, most companies. And they were mostly any kind of telemarketing role.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the Telesis of the world.
Right. Any kind
West-
of customer support and stuff.
Yeah, WestJet too, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So they would have their people that were able, and banks too.
Oh.
They had all their people but they had people that would go to their house, make sure they had this set up so that there was this privacy. Then the pandemic hits. Everybody needs a couple offices in their house. They don't really have it. So you've got some people that are working from their bedroom still, the kitchen table, not in proper chairs, not proper setups. The doorbell goes, the dogs are barking, right? So
Amazon delivery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you've got all these people that are like, get me out of here. I want to go back to the office. But the flip side is you have a lot of people that are looking to still work from home or the hybrid model where I can go in or I can work from home. Either way, you're good with it and I'm good with it. And I think it's those companies that will adopt this flexible. Everybody at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was like, everybody can work from home forever.
Woo-hoo.
And now that things are starting to open up, all of a sudden these companies are like, oh no, you have to come in.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're seeing influx of people going, I'm not going in. Like, find me a job where I can work from home.
Yeah.
So
there's a work-life balance that's come about in the last 2 years that people have begun to look at more value from working from home than going in, especially if they're staying home with kids and stuff like that. Some people have learned to like that. Others, not so much, but that hybrid model has worked for a lot of big companies like Google and Apple and things like that for years and years and years prior to pandemic. So the evolving of businesses and how they operate, but I love the flexibility that you're talking about. So,
and I do think the opportunity for once these companies do go public.
Yeah.
The opportunity for people to buy in and actually be a part owner of what they're helping build.
Yeah.
That speaks a lot, I think.
Yeah.
So that the combination of the two things is what they can offer.
That's so important. I talked to a lot of people that have been looking for jobs, have recently found jobs, and that is that big thing, is just sell me, like make me believe that I'm making a difference. That when I go to
Yes.
your job, I'm making a difference, and what I do matters. And
Yes.
and a lot of people want to see what they're doing matters, or see the results of what they do. So if I'm going to sit there and punch holes in this paper every day, I want to see that when all those holes lined up properly, make a picture.
I couldn't agree more. I was just talking to a guy the other day, and he was at a company that paid him significantly less than what the industry pays for his skill set, okay? And I asked him what it was that made him stay there. Why do you stay there when you know you could walk across the street and make more?
Yeah.
Why? And he said to me, every quarter they bring in pizza for everybody. Something small, right?
Yep.
They bring in pizza and then they tell us how much money they made or lost on each project that we worked on.
Oh.
And so he's actually a welder. And so I was like, okay, so interesting. So the trades guys even value
Yeah.
knowing that what we're welding on and what we're building, did we make money on this or did we not? They're actually interested in that. So being transparent with everybody
Yeah.
to let them know that what you worked on, we actually came up short and this is why, or we made money and that's why we have pizza.
Yeah.
But that's what they wanted to know. That's what they want to know.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right
And so
on.
I would say for these tech startups as well, the same thing goes, is you might not be able to pay what other industries might pay for the same skill sets. However, you can make people feel a part of something.
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
That's what they're
Absolutely.
looking
So
for.
telling your story, I think without a doubt, was one of the top things that from an employer standpoint they need to do. Telling that story effectively.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yes. And even once they get the people in, continue telling the story.
Yeah. Or make them part of the story.
Oh, I love it.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool.
I love that.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Debbie, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this with us. This has been super informative.
Oh,
and
good. Thank
I
you.
think this is going to help out a lot of people. I know that there's lots of employers out there, lots of startups. I mean, this industry is starting to really boom, and it's really starting to gather some serious traction here in Alberta. And some of these things that we've covered here today are answering some of the questions that those employers are looking for. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
What that's called?